Okay, so our students are also joining.
Okay.
কুড়ি হবে একটা। হলো একটা।
So we have Zeenat ma'am from Islamic History Department and Professor Antolina Kaur from Botany Department.
Okay. Okay. Hello. Nice to meet you.
কারণ কখন গেল ঘুমানি।
Okay, so I think we should start now, and the students must be on their way to join the webinar.
Okay.
Coordinate Rimpa ma'am, Shahida ma'am, shall we start?
Yes, please start.
Okay.
Okay.
So at the very beginning, I feel honored to introduce our eminent speaker for today, Dr. Arnav Ganguly. He is from Banwari Lal Bhalotia College, Asansol, Department of Zoology. So, sir, after completing his graduation from Ashutosh College, he did his post graduation from BHU. Then he had an incredible academic career from Geoth University, Frankfurt. Then he had done his postdoctoral research from University of Edinburgh. And today it's our honor to have him for delivering this talk on forensic biology. So, sir, I would request you, sir, it's over to you now. Please, sir, can you please enlighten us on your topic?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Uh, and it was indeed a, a very glorious introduction to, about me. And one thing I would like to say, hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So essentially, in today's talk, before I start today's talk, I would like to thank HOD ma'am, Aurelie madam here, madams from all the departments who are present, and of course my dear students. I would also like to thank Pavel madam who had called me and sort of fixed this appointment up. And in this regard, I would say that I've been asked that if possible, if I could talk on forensic biology. Well, some days back, actually, for some students asked that what can you do when you after you finish your masters, how do you get into forensic biology, and how do you go get into forensic? The answer is that thing is that you have to join the police. So in the police, you already you don't need to do always work regarding on fighting and action and going after politicians and all whatever you see in the movies. There are certain small departments like cybercrime, forensic. Forensic is now a huge department. And so with this, let me start. I'll go through with my slides. It will not be a very long talk. I will not bore you for a longer time. So I'm sharing my screen. I would appreciate if somebody can tell me if it's visible or not.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
It's visible? Very good.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, yeah, it's visible right now, I hope. After making it full screen. Hello, are you able to listen? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're
Okay,
audible, sir.
I'm audible. Okay. Okay, so first thing about what is forensic biology. So whenever we talk about forensic biology, the first thing which comes into our mind is looking for fingerprints, looking for DNA, looking for several clues as to who has committed the murder as such. It involves the application of biological principles and techniques within the context of law enforcement investigations. So essentially what you do is that you use biology principles of molecular biology. You can use lots of principles of botany, principles of entomology, principles of ballistics. That is with the bullets and all these things. All these principles are used. Then anatomy, type of damages done by ballistics. A bullet hits you in the brain. How the bullet should damage your brain. That from that you can sort of backtrack as to from which direction the bullet was fired, something things like this. All this is study in forensic biology. So basically, you work with a law enforcement agency Uh, Unfortunately, private investigators they don't actually interact with forensic biology. They give it to forensic laboratories. So whenever these police go to the scene of crime, they say they take samples. Uh, Along with them, there is a forensic biologist who goes. He collects the appropriate samples, and they are sent to the forensic laboratory where where they do a detailed analysis. And you can see that in movies and serials, crime serials, you can see forensic का report आया है क्या, बोला हाँ forensic का report से ये खूनी है. So things like these, it's very common. So from the time immemorial, we know Bomkesh Bokshi. We knew about the Savdhan India, and of course everyone knows this. दया जल्दी से सीआईडी पे भेज दो. The CID from Sony Max, everybody knows. Sherlock Holmes, everybody knows. And of course, this is the crime reporter. It's very entertaining as well as very enlightening. So essentially, all these things, all of these individuals, they sent to forensic laboratories. And Sherlock Holmes, of course, is fictional, but Sherlock Holmes and all of them are basically fictional, apart from Savdhan India and the one on the bottom left. Sherlock Holmes was supposed to be a wonderful in chemistry, so he used to do this forensic himself. He could understand what was rocks and soil, so all investigations went in this direction. So, what are the various specializations of forensic science? So, forensic science actually can be divided broadly into many aspects. One is the forensic toxicology. You have the forensic ballistics. You have document fingerprinting. You have cyber and digital forensics. Then an interesting field, forensic psychology. And nowadays, very important is forensic entomology. And being biologists, and if you are in West Bengal, you need to be very good in your entomology. In West Bengal, we are more or less, I won't say in quotation marks, our fields in biochemistry and molecular biology, we are not that advanced. But in entomology, we can compare ourselves with anybody anywhere in the world. We are extremely strong in this aspect. So, one thing you have to learn very well is your entomology about insects. Now, what is covered under the title of forensic biology? You have microbiology, you have entomology, botany, odontology, study of teeth, osteology, study of bones. You have anthropology, that is, you study things in relation to a human being, and so it's society, anthropology. Then you study about environmental crimes. You study about pathology. All these uh, things are covered under the title forensic biology. So essential techniques which are used is DNA sequencing. You have a blood pattern analysis done. This is a pattern of the blood you can analyze on computer. There is a software. You have for forensic palynology. You study with pollen grains and spores. You have forensic anthropology. You have integrated ballistic identification system. So from the brain you take out a bullet, then you can understand from where the bullet was fired and things. You have trace evidence analysis, toxicology, and forensic entomology. So basically, as a layman, how do you think? What do forensic experts do? They collect samples of hair, blood, saliva, semen, skin from the crime scene. Then they extract genetic material, DNA, RNA from there. They have got there are specific markers in the regions which are sequenced, and they show lots of differences. And then they are replicated by PCR, and then they perform electrophoresis. Then they laser lights up fluorescent tags, and fragment lengths are measured. So while PCR, they are all fluorescently tagged, and then they run it on a gel, and different individuals have got different patterns. So if you have already a known criminal pattern in the database, and when you see this particular pattern, or you have 5 or 6 suspects, you take their samples, have the pattern, and then you find this pattern in the crime scene. Then you can say, okay, this suspect, they match. So you can pinpoint your murderer to a particular sample, from that particular sample of that individual, that your sample has matched. Say, from a rape scene, there is a suspected rapist, that from the semen you can get the DNA, and then from that DNA you take it from the suspect's DNA, and if it matches, well, you are the rapist and you are in prison. So all sort of analysis can be done in this aspect. Then you have forensic serology. Serology is basically blood tests. Blood, semen, saliva, sweat, urine, milk, fecal matter, hair. So there are preliminary assays which done, the benzidine reaction, leukomalachite green reaction, phenolphthalein reaction. So all these titration experiments, you could see in the former episodes of CID, in the lab they see this, oh, this immediately, this phenolphthalein reaction that becomes pink. So I liked it very much when they use this particular phenolphthalein reaction to identify particular blood, how long this blood was there, what's the pH has changed. So they had used this phenolphthalein reaction. In real, they have used. Actually, they did showed the right color, this phenolphthalein reaction. Then there are other confirmatory assays. Then to identify species, if there is precipitin reaction, if it's a dog bite or a cat bite, it died from an animal attack. Uh, all these forensic serology, you can get lots of evidences from forensic serology. Now, nowadays, what we use predominantly is DNA finger printing technique, and this technique is also used in case of paternity suit, that the father says that this is not my son, but the son says he's a wealthy father, but the son says, no, you are my father. And so they do a DNA test. So they do this DNA fingerprinting testing. So there is a match between father and son. It happened to this late Congress leader N.D. Tiwari. He had a paternity at the age of 83. Perhaps he had a son, and he denied it. But then this paternity test later showed that if he was genuinely his son. So you have the DNA sample, you extract the DNA, you cleave the DNA by special enzymes known as restriction endonucleases. These restriction endonucleases, they cut at specific sites on a DNA, specific sequence in the DNA. This restriction endonuclease will cut. And then if you run it on a gel electrophoresis, on the basis of the size and the cuts, you have a different pattern found on the gel. And then from there you can evidently you can say that uh, a particular person's profile depends on this gel electrophoresis, and they are radio labeled, that is radioactivity is attached, and then from there they can actually see find out their particular patterns. So this is actually known as DNA fingerprinting. Like every individual's fingerprint doesn't match. One person's fingerprint will not match with another person's. One person's DNA restriction enzyme cut electrophoresis, run electrophoresis will not match. It is unique for unique individuals. So it is like a fingerprint, but you are doing it in a DNA level. So the same technique which I showed, the sample, the DNA is extracted, they are cut into small fragments, they are run on a gel, the smear is run, then they are radio labeled, then specific probes are given, and then you get a pattern like this. For example, this particular pattern of DNA was found on the crime scene, and there are three suspects. The first one's pattern was this, the second one's pattern was this, the third one's pattern was this. You can see from the crime scene, suspect two's pattern exactly matched in the DNA fingerprint, and so they could pinpoint suspect two as the criminal. A strange case happened in London in the year 2014, where a where a lady was murdered, and after she was murdered, what happens was that from her nails of the dead victim, from her nails, what was found was a another sample of a person's hair tissue samples was found, and it's almost like when she was murdered, she had scratched that person's hair and things came under her nail. this DNA, with very small amount of sample came under her nail. And when they this woman was murdered on 28th April 2014. And then what happened was, then they took the sample from the nail, and then they did this pattern, and they found out that the person who had this pattern, that person died something like 3 weeks back. মানে 3 সপ্তাহ আগে মারা গেছে. 3 weeks back, the murderer had died. So you can find this in BBC News, the strange time travel murder. So they could not find out, so they labeled it as that the person, he murdered this victim and then traveled back 3 weeks back and died. So therefore, it was called as a time travel murder. So even with such a specific analysis, one person cannot actually get, you cannot get all the solutions. You still need that good old Sherlock Holmes to come. During that strange Victorian era, Jack the Ripper was there. He used to murder prostitutes. He was not caught. 150 years back, this strange Jack the Ripper created terror in the roads, the prostitutes areas of London, the red alleys of London in the Victorian England. He used to keep on murdering prostitutes, but he was not caught. So something like these things, even DNA fingerprinting about who were the murdered victim, all these profiles were not preserved. So we can't know. Perhaps we could have found out the murderer at that time. But even in today's date, this time travel murder like mysteries happen. Then Germany's phantom serial killer. What happens at different crime scenes, suddenly the DNA finger pattern, it showed that around 40 of these separate samples, they had the sample of a particular woman, a particular individual's DNA was found in 40 murders. Now, they thought that there must be a serial killer present over there. Somebody who's keeping on, killed 40 people, he or she killed 40 people. But later it was found out that it was the DNA of the technician who handled these 40 samples. She worked very clumsily and her DNA also fell in the sample. And so always in that process sample, her DNA was coming up, and people thought that she was the serial killer when she was actually the technician who was working. So these blunders do occur. Another thing is forensic anthropology. By forensic anthropology, you can determine sex, you can determine age, you can determine stature, how long, how tall, or how what was the facial face looking like. You can reconstruct the face, and bones also tell us a lot. So they are working on skeletal remains. So they killed and murdered and they buried her. And after some years, only skeletals remain, and the skeleton remains are exhumed. From there, you can still identify that person. From the teeth, also, you can identify a person. Age determination, bite mark analysis can be done, individualization. So, somewhere while a person was murdered, perhaps this person bit the suspect and they had a bite mark, and then later on from the teeth that particular bite mark photo can be superimposed, and you can use the teeth also to find out lots about that person. Then what are the pollen suppose this particular pollen grains are found in this particular person's body, so you can say that this pollen grains occur in particular area of this particular city. So from this pollen grains, spores, and location of the crime, you can actually find out where the murder was done. So this is also an important. All these things, bits and pieces, you can reconstruct the whole scene of murder. Then forensic entomology. Here you can see a some cut finger piece was found, and you can see different insects, bugs and maggots, they are infesting this. So at different times at which your particular body part starts to rot, at different stages of death, after death, different types of insects sort of manifest into the body, and finding the that type of insect, you can say how long back that person had died. So this is a through forensic. I've listened during this lockdown. There was a scientist in Germany who had worked a lot. He explained about how he used forensic entomology and he could find out the killer. Some other day, maybe I could talk about this story, but it's going to be a huge, long story. So I'll move away to the next topic. So, what does a crime scene team compose of? You have police officers on the scene, investigators, medics if there is a need, photographers or field evidence technicians, DNA expert, then a serologist, a pathologist, toxicologist, forensic odontologist, forensic psychologist. They study fungus, forensic anthropologist, forensic entomologist. Then you have firearm examiner, bomb and arson expert, document and handwriting expert, fingerprint expert. So this crime scene team is a huge set of people. So you get a job everywhere. You can get a job everywhere. You need to be having a good degree in zoology or chemistry or forensic biology. You can be a physicist also. So science degree you need. Then you have to enter into the police. So education scopes, you can be professors, associate professors, assistant professors, researcher, lab instructor, trainers, legal advisors. Then you can even join into police. There are examinations in the police force where you can enter into forensics in the police department. Like you enter into IPS, similarly, there are examinations. After entering into IPS, you can go into the forensics division also. There is a training also. For example, if you are a biologist, you can get into the forensic training also. So, if you have a love of science, if you would like to use it for good of society and public safety, you can think about this as a career. Just go to Park Circus police station and ask about. They will. I can tell you. They will entertain students like you about how you can enter into forensic. I did it once myself, and they were very good enough from Guriat. I live in Baliganj Place East. My house is in Kolkata. So I went to Guriat police station, and they told me about what career. In fact, they suggested me to join the police force, and then from there you can go to forensic. But you need a background in uh, biology or science, or anthropology is also used. So thank you very much. So this actually sums up my talk. Can you? I can take any questions if you have any. Hello, students. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
So I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So can BSc general students do
Yes,
have any
yes, yes,
future
yes.
in
Definitely.
forensic biology?
If you are eligible for government jobs with a general degree, you are eligible for
Yes, sir.
forensic science. Basically, you try West Bengal Police Service. You have to enter through it since you have a general biology background. They will of course train you. You will work in an internship level. Somebody senior will be there. They will explain to you how things work, and you have to go. There is a lot of field work also present over there. So basically, in India right now, there are institutes, there are agencies. So basically, uh, from how you enter CIA, how you enter CBI, how you enter CID, how you enter police force, you have to enter similarly over there. So basically, you will be a law enforcer. So in India, actually, it
Thank
works
you,
like
sir.
this. There are lots of interesting stories about forensic entomology. So thank you. Any more questions? I can take questions. IQAC coordinator, ma'am, or Aheli, madam? Anybody there?